It cannot be denied that neglecting women, particularly women at the margins, in important decision making processes runs the risk of being flawed. Therefore, it is important to create spaces for women's political education, for them to be able to critically analyze and unpack exploitation and oppression affecting their bodies and lives, and be able to build strategies in addressing those issues. Equally important is supporting women's organizing and movement building work from the ground up to ensure women's political and civic rights are protected. The increasing gap between government and its people in terms of protecting human rights and the right to self determination has impacts on the level of spaces ensured for women to engage in policy decisions and processes. Women's freedoms and democratic spaces at the front line have shrunk. The people, particularly women, are the receiving end of policy changes, yet remain to be at the margins of important conversations and decision making affecting their bodies, lives, and livelihood.
In Mesoamerica, in Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador, and Nicaragua, we are living in a hostile context and where most of the governments are closing and limited the dialogue and the spaces with social movements. Our agendas as feminists are condemned, most of them. For example, in most of our countries, we cannot decide about our bodies, our sexuality, our maternities, or we have limited access to land and credit. Or as feminists in front lines, we are suffering different kinds of violence, or we are criminalized. For example, at this moment in Nicaragua, since April 2008, are more than 50 women in prison, in jail, condemned. Why? Because they are women human rights defenders. We can be strong to organize us together to improve the feminist leadership inside social movements, because women are in front of different kind of social movements. For that, if we can improve our feminist leadership, we have more power, we are more strong. And we can organize networks, coalitions at local, national, regional, and global level. Why not? And because together we are more resilient, this is something that we can dream more a feminist and equal agendas and an equal world, because we want to continue living without violence. We want to continue having access to land. We want to continue to maintain our land and resources, and we want to have voices in our organizations, in our communities, and why not at the national and political level. And because without women, it's not possible to achieve the sustainable development goals. Without women, it's not possible.
I think in order for us to be able to best achieve SDG 5 in the context of closing civic space and increased violence, we need to be able to invest in women's political education and organizing in ways where we are able to start where the women are. Women who are most affected by these issues needs to be the change agents, needs to be informing the agenda, and needs to be the ones that are driving processes of change. One of the ways that we can do this is actually through movement building, where we aim to change, where we aim to challenge systems such as patriarchy, systems such as capitalism, by also analyzing how power is working. We also need to create spaces where women are able to define their own agendas. I believe that I live in a context where policies are in place, laws are in place, but the laws and the policies have done nothing to actually protect women. So we need to invest most of our time in building women's collectives that are able to respond to the challenges that we're talking about, that are able to challenge patriarchal norms, heteronormativity, militarization, religious fundamentalisms, which are some of the things that are sitting at the core of women's marginalization in society. So we need to be able to invest in those things if we are ever to change this narrative. But it also involves investing time in working with women who are at the grassroots, women who are mostly affected by issues, and then they become the change agents in their own communities and in in building the society that we need. And we need to invest in processes that enable women to be able to analyze power, so that even as we do our advocacy initiatives, we have an understanding of where this power resides. And a deep understanding of our context is also very important. So how does patriarchy work? How does it, how does it collude with other systems of oppression in ensuring that women remain in the position where they are? So deep political work, investing in, processes that allow for political education to take place, and also for changing of mindsets, along with, policy and laws. If we do not work at that level where we are changing mindsets, where we are analyzing power, then the policies and the laws that we have will always remain null and void. So I really think that we need to go down back to the basics and mobilize women, do deep political education work that is able to transform the lives of women. Only then will we be able to achieve SDG 5.